Hey, what's up everyone? My name is NigelBarros, and in today's video, I'm gonna be doing a review of the Hohem iSteady gear gimbal. Now, before I start this review, I do wanna say that Hohem did send this out to me to review, but as with all my reviews, I'm not required to say anything nice about it. This is gonna be a completely honest and unbiased review. So like I said, this is the Hohem iSteady gear 3-axis handheld gimbal, and some of the things that are mentioned on the box is that it's quick assembling design, built-in Bluetooth, and a wide compatibility to support cameras up to 2.5 kilograms, which I believe is around 5 pounds. And it comes with a really nice carrying case that holds all the gear just perfectly. It also came with this little, I think it's called a yoke. This is actually designed to go in front of the little quick release plate to support, bigger lenses. And yeah, it also comes with its own battery charger and a little mini tripod so you can set it up on a table to get it balanced. So my experience with handheld gimbals like this is not super extensive. I've used the Zhiyun Crane M and the Zhiyun Smooth Q before, but this one is definitely a different beast. It can support cameras way bigger than those two gimbals could, and honestly, first impressions when I first got out of the box was I really liked it. Some of the first test clips that I ever did with this gimbal was in the video Government Cove. If you haven't checked that little video out, I'll put a card right up here so you can go check that out. I used this gimbal a lot in that video. That was like the first run taking it out, but I think since then I've kind of learned how to balance it perfectly and get it to not have any vibrations, which is what I experienced that issue when I was filming that Government Cove video. Was I didn't have it perfectly balanced, and so whenever I would try to make two sudden movements, the gimbal would start vibrating. I think it's just because the motors were working too hard and I didn't have it balanced properly. So that's something that I've definitely been playing around with and getting a little bit better at. So after using this for about 2 weeks now, I definitely feel like I have a much better feel for how to get it balanced and how to get the best results out of this gimbal. So at the time that I'm recording this video, this gimbal runs for about $3.99 on Amazon. And honestly, that's a pretty good deal considering that you can put a pretty heavy payload on this gimbal. Some pretty cool features about this gimbal, not only is that it can obviously hold a lot bigger cameras than your small little mirrorless cameras. I actually balanced a Canon DSLR, a 60D with the 18-135 on this gimbal, and it worked out perfectly. So you can actually balance like an 80D or a 70D with a pretty substantial lens on here and still get really steady shots with even those bigger cameras. One thing that I actually had a lot of fun with was using the app for this gimbal. It connects via Bluetooth and you can control basically everything within the app. You can set it up to do motion time lapses or just control the motion within the app. If you wanted somebody else to control the pan or the tilt like while you're using it, that is easily done with the app for this iSteady gear gimbal. I've definitely used apps before that are supposed to communicate with certain pieces of gear and they don't actually work that well, but the app for this Hohem gimbal works surprisingly well, and it's really easy to set up stuff like motion time lapses with. And you can also collaborate this gimbal within the app as well, so that's pretty cool. So the camera that I mounted on this the most was my Panasonic GH3 with the DJI 15mm, and I actually even added this little quick release plate. This is an Arca Swiss quick release, and that's just made it super easy to get on and off, and it kind of shortened the amount of time that I would have to actually balance the gimbal, because if I just balance it to where this little Arca Swiss plate is, I can just put my camera on and off there and it'll be perfectly balanced every single time. So this gimbal features all of the same modes that you would find on basically every other gimbal. It has an all lock, a pan follow, a tilt follow, all that kind of stuff, and you can control all of that as well within the app. Some of the things that I don't necessarily like so much about it is, this is no fault of the gimbal, it's just my personal preference, is for me, this is actually a pretty substantially sized gimbal, and it kind of has to be in order to take that payload. But I think that for my GH3, it's almost overkill because my GH3 setup isn't super big. But if you had something like an 80D or even maybe a 60 Mark II, as long as you can keep it under the weight limit, it could get you some really good results. And honestly, if you have a bigger camera like that, this is probably a pretty good option for you if you want to try to save some money, because the bigger gimbals that can support bigger payloads are going to cost you a lot more. But for me, I rock a pretty small setup, so having a gimbal this big is a little bit more cumbersome than I think it needs to be. That being said, that is just personal preference. I did find it a little harder to break down and put into my backpack just because of how big it is. But if you have a bigger camera, obviously a bigger gimbal makes sense. So like I mentioned before, the first run with this gimbal maybe wasn't the perfect example of of the kind of footage that you can get with this. It was kind of shaky and bouncy, but as I've gotten to know it a little bit better and, you know, collaborating it perfectly and getting it balanced, this actually produces really nice results, and they're like really smooth. I can walk with this and it almost looks like I'm on a dolly track. Skateboarding with something like this makes it look just insane because it's already smoothing your footage out so much anyways, and you add like a smooth linear motion on your skateboard and it just looks so good. So I definitely think that the footage you can get out of this gimbal, it might lack some of the features of, like, you know, the more expensive gimbals, but I think for the price, this is awesome. And, you know, I come from a background of shooting a lot with, like, you know, glide cams and stuff like that, especially for weddings. But, you know, now that I've had a chance to actually own one of these gimbals and, you know, use it for a few weeks, I definitely think I'll be switching to using something like this for when I shoot weddings. It's just so much simpler. And one of the really cool things about having a gimbal like this is, you know, I gave it to my wife, I gave it to my little brother, and the learning curve is just so much quicker using a gimbal like this. I couldn't just hand my wife or my brother a glide cam and say, hey, can you get a smooth shot of me walking? They wouldn't be able to do it because there's like a skill and a technique to using a glide cam, but with this, all you have to do is just be able to hold it and you can just walk and get really nice, smooth footage. So yeah, I would definitely say that if you are one of those people that have always been frustrated because you just haven't been able to put in the time and effort to like learn how to use a glide cam properly or something like that, or maybe you just can't afford the more expensive gimbals by like the bigger name brands, I would definitely say look into this Hohem Tech iSteady Gear gimbal, because for the price, I think that it works out really well. And if you have a bigger camera, this can support up to, I think, 5.5 pounds, which is pretty crazy. It's 2.5 kilograms, so hopefully my math is right on that. It also has a 1/4-20 tap right here on the side, so you could attach accessories like a monitor maybe onto the side here, so you could, you know, actually rig this up like pretty substantially big if you really wanted to. And again, I actually just have this on a tripod because there is a 1/4-20 tap on the bottom here. So you could, you know, potentially hook another arm on the bottom here and have the monitor attached to that. There's mounting options. There's all of the balancing options that you would want. You got an app that you can collaborate it really well. So yeah, my final thoughts is I really like it. Big thanks to Hohem Tech for sending me this gimbal to review. It's been really fun using it, and if you are interested in picking this gimbal up, I'll have some links to where you can buy it in the description below. Anyways, thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, it'd be great if you hit the like button, and be sure to subscribe to my channel if you want to see more content from me. I'll have a bunch of links to other gear that I use and recommend in the description below. But again, thanks for tuning in, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye.